Good evening. I'm Sharon Pinkstaff, Chair of the Pros Commission. Welcome to Monday, August 31st, Special Pros Commission meeting. Commission Secretary Mike Vickers, would you please do the roll call?
Yes. Commissioner Oler,
Here.
Commissioner Garland,
Here.
Commissioner Brockhouse,
Here.
Vice Chair Sasser,
Here.
and Chair Pinkstaff.
Here.
Let the record show that all are in attendance.
All right. Let's move to the public communications part of this meeting. Under California law, public comments at special meetings are limited to subjects on the agenda only. Therefore, public comment will be received during the commission's consideration of the item. Under the Brown Act, the commission cannot act on items raised during public communications, but may respond briefly to statements made or questions posed, request clarifications, or refer the item to staff. Written comments submitted have been posted to the city's website for public review and are included in the meeting record, but will not be separately read into the record. Do we have any public communications and comments from the audience? Seeing none, commissioners, do you have any questions or comments related to the public comments? Nope. All right. We'll just move forward to the next item, consent calendar, approval of meeting minutes of June 1st, 2026. Does any commissioner wish to pull the item for discussion? Does any member of the staff wish to pull the item for discussion?
No.
Okay. Does any public member wish to comment on the item on the consent calendar? Okay, seeing no, I'll ask the commission if anyone would like to make a motion with regard to the consent calendar. Anyone wants to make a motion?
I move we approve the minutes of June 1st.
Do we have a second?
Second.
All right.
Need to call roll.
Yep.
Commissioner Garland,
Yes.
Vice Chair Sasser,
Yes.
Chair Pinkstaff,
Yes.
Commissioner Oler,
Yes.
and Commissioner Brockhouse.
Yes.
Yeah, sorry, I got mixed up there. Let the record show that the item passes unanimously.
All right. This is a fast meeting. Next on the agenda is a presentation of Heather Farm New Aquatic and Community Center Phase 3 planning options. I invite Chris Farrell, Director of Arts and Recreation with the City of Walnut Creek, forward to provide the presentation.
Hi, Chris Farrow, Director of Arts and Recreation. And I'm not going to read aloud the staff report, but I'll give you a high level, and then I thought this could be more conversational to answer any questions that you had. So council appropriated $250,000 for staff to hire an outside consultant in order to decide what to do with the Clark Pool property once the pool is the new pool is opened and the pool is demolished. So the idea was we would go to a consultant. This consultant would conduct public outreach to determine the wants and wishes of the community, and then we would come back to council with a plan of what we would recommend for that parcel. In the meanwhile, the city has started General Plan 2050, which I'm sure you are well aware. And as staff have been interacting with the consultants of the general plan, we have been asked a lot of the same questions that we'd be asking about this particular parcel at Clark. So they're looking at land use, they're looking at how traffic moves, the development, the use of our parklands. So they're looking at a lot of the same kind of ideas. And so staff thought, does it make sense to roll these projects together? Does it make sense to use the research and public outreach data that is coming from the general plan to help us decide what to do with the Clark property? And one of our other concerns was, do we want to be doing public outreach on just Clark while general plan is also doing public outreach, and might that be redundant or confusing to the public if we have multiple surveys going on and a little bit of survey overload, so to speak? So we thought maybe an idea would be to hold off on spending the funds that were appropriated by council for this project. Let the data come in from the general plan. See if that's enough data to surmise what needs to be done, not just with the Clark property or the Clark parcel, but the entire property over at Heather Farm. As you know, we have some new amenities there that we do not plan to touch, but there are some other areas that we could look at. That includes a portable that is out on the property right now that has been there for a very long time, and we bought it, I think it was almost 50 years old when we bought it, so we have to make some decisions about that. There's also the equestrian center that's out there. There's also our tennis center that's out there, pickleball tennis center. So there's other pieces of the property that we could examine with a broader master plan. So we wanted to bring it to pros to get your feedback. It does affect a timeline. I think that's the major thing that would be affected. So right now, if we moved forward with council's direction, as is currently been adopted, we are looking at being able to present a plan to council and moving to construction pretty quickly after the pool demolition. If we were to go with the broader master plan idea, when the pool is demolished is just about the time that we'd be bringing a new concept to council, which then means it would need to go to design and construction. So guesstimating about 1.5 years difference between the two paths forward. But we'd like your input, and staff, Mike and I are here to answer any of your questions that you might have about the two options.
Questions from the commissioners? Art?
Yeah, I know that we're presented with basically two options, but at the very end, there's a mention of or something else, right?
Sure.
So while I don't want to present something else, I have questions concerning the timeline.
Mm-hmm.
If there is a way to accelerate let's say we recommend approval of the combined plan, so to speak. I don't have a better title for it, but
Sure.
and we head in that direction. Is there a way to at least start the process earlier with the consultant to chip away at that 1.5 year difference between the two? It would seem like it would be possible to go through the hiring process, for instance, a little bit before where it's suggested in the presentation, at least so that the onboarding starts even before the ink dries on the 2050 accumulation of input from the citizens and everything else, that type of thing.
I think the thought, and Mike can jump into this because you're far more of an expert about these kinds of RFPs, is we wanted to wait to bring on the consultant until we knew what data sets we would have from the general plan, because we would want to include that in the RFP. So if we find out we have, I don't know, just to make up a number, 100 pages of data that are very specific to that parcel and to Heather Farm that all came in, well, that would define a pretty small course of outreach work for this consultant. However, if we find out we get to the end of the general plan and maybe it wasn't as in-depth as we thought and additional outreach needs to happen, we would want to include that in the RFP. So I think that was our concern. But to your point, if we get the go-ahead on this, then we can go ahead and talk to the general plan folks. Like, we've kind of talked around the general plan folks of what we're thinking, and they're on board, but that would give us the ability to go to them directly and say, here's the information that we need, and hopefully be able to guide them in the path, and then we would certainly be able to move forward more expeditiously.
And in that respect, that at least the group that is working on the general plan would possibly be able to develop ranges of data sets. You know, it's going to be from this to this based on the input we've had and the way things are going and the way the calendar's working, that type of stuff. I mean,
Yep.
I'm just trying to think of a way to satisfy the demands of a good RFP,
Sure.
but not wait till it's really, really, set, so to speak.
I think
don't
it's workable.
So I have a question about the timeline. So for the first option with going with the consultant, so in fall 2028, the city should be able to implement, execute kind of what the plan is, right? So if going with the general plan, option 2, would that be 2029, the project will be executed? or
Correct.
maybe
So the
later?
main difference is the
Okay.
demolition of the pool will happen 2028. On
Right.
option 1, at that same time-ish, always at ish with construction, we will be able to go out to bid for the project that council has approved.
Okay,
Option 2, at that same time, we would be able to go out to design of the project that council had
Okay.
approved. So that's the difference. And so to the point that was made earlier is, could we back that up a bit? I think we could back it up a bit. We can't close the entire 1.5 year gap because we are waiting for the information to come back from the general plan consultants.
okay. So for the general plan, there's so many aspects of general plan, right? So the pros piece, the open space or the park and rec piece, is there any opportunity to move it up? I know we're gonna have a joint study session at some point, like in terms of timing of it, like is the consultant approaching the general plan like parallelly with all aspects?
Yes, it all
Or-
happens at
okay.
once because there's
Okay.
different consultants for each area of specialty, so they're all pushing forward at the same
Okay.
time. There's kind of 3 phases. So the phase that we're in right now is called current condition. So basically everyone's trying to ask questions about what does Walnut Creek look like right now today.
Right.
The next phase is where do we want to be in 2050? And then the big work that takes years and years is how do we get from here to there,
Yeah.
right? We don't need to wait for that part to happen. We just need the outreach of what do you want to see in Walnut Creek that's missing now? And then we could take that to kind of extrapolate, okay, well, what of that can go at what,
Okay.
how could we use Clark for that?
All right, and my other question is, what does it look like between demolition and the implementation of the new project? What is the,
Like what will Clark look like
Yeah,
in
what
the
is the site?
meanwhile?
Yeah,
I
yeah.
will let Mike speak to that. So when the pool is demoed, whether we have a plan ready to go, we'll still be waiting for construction to happen regardless. What is our plan? Is we just putting grass in there? I'm not exactly sure if we've even gotten that far.
Yeah, we haven't gotten that far yet, because there hasn't been any money appropriated. Right now, the funding that has been appropriated to date is to demo the structure. And then there's $250,000 that was set aside to start working through a planning process. So I don't have an answer for you. What would make sense is to go back there and make the space available. Just put some grass and some sprinklers out there to make sure that the space is available and usable while we're waiting for the next phase. But if we're truly going to go with option 1, where we're going back to council in the spring or summer of '28, and then potentially going out with an RFP to start construction, 3 to 6 months or a year, maybe beginning of '29, we'll have to weigh what's beneficial financially. Does that make sense?
Mhm.
Yeah.
Thanks.
I'm kind of wondering, if the general plan update will cover everything that Walnut Creek has now and will need in the future. It feels silly to kind of ignore the parks and do it separately. I mean, we would want the amenities to be shared across all city facilities, and so to kind of carve out Heather Farm. I'm just wondering if there's a way that we can accelerate that process within the general plan so that it speaks to all of the park's amenities altogether, and so that there's a plan that would include Heather Farm instead of Heather Farm being separate from the general plan.
The general plan will speak from a land use perspective about, it's more of looking at our needs, like is our current park system working for us? Do we need parks in other areas? It looks at density, it looks at traffic patterns getting to and from our parks, those kinds of things. It won't speak necessarily to each individual park and the needs in each park. We will get information as far as, we need to have more outdoor recreation. We need to have, it'll make some generalizations like that. And so that's where we'd like to piggyback in to get the consultants to drill down to give us some more information. And then why we're tying it to Heather Farm as opposed to any other park is we, staff are looking at, once these new buildings go in, it is going to change the traffic flow and patterns of the park. We won't really, our traffic team is phenomenal and they can make some guesstimates how the park will be impacted, but we won't know for sure until people are out there. And I don't mean traffic, just cars and parking lots. That is one thing we're concerned about. The parking lots will not be located as close, for example, to the pool as it is now. So we're wondering how that's going to work, but also just how people move throughout the park. So as you know, how we shifted the buildings and how they're laid out on the site, we've reduced the amount of passive space for people to just go out and lay out their picnic blanket and things like that, which is very high use at Heather Farm. And so we're also wanting to see how that shifts. Like, perhaps the use for that parcel is passive space. Perhaps it's pickleball courts. Like, we don't know the answer to that, but one of the things that staff talked about with option 2 is it does also give us the time to see those buildings open and to be able to look at what the traffic patterns end up being and the needs just naturally kind of happen in that park. So I don't know if that answered your question, but I think we just looked at it as the advantage of Heather Farm, whether we do it now or whether we do it down the road, needs a revision of the current master plan that it has. It's already outdated in that we're doing this project right now. So we just thought as an opportunity to just say, kind of check multiple boxes. Like, yes, we can look at Clark, but also like we need an update to the Heather Farm master plan. So that's why we picked it out, not to necessarily prioritize it others. It just seemed like the timing was right to do
Sure.
both.
I was thinking more about your comment about, are we now surveying the same people on the same thing in multiple different ways? Mm-hmm. And if we're already getting that information one way, and that information is feeding decisions on all of the parks and all of the recreation space, it seems like that information would be invaluable to whatever happens at Heather Farm.
Sure.
And so I don't know that it needs to be done twice, but it would be a bummer to do it so much later than it could.
So for the demolition of at Clark, is that going to affect the parking lot there at all? I mean, or is that staying intact?
The parking lot is staying intact. We just have questions whether it's going to, one, meet the need, and then how people are going to react to the distance. So obviously not just the main community center, but also the pool. There's a lot of events there. So people are kind of, trudging a lot of wagons and hand carts and those kinds of things. And so we're just wondering, like, will we need kind of a closer, maybe like drop-off lot, just looking at the whole parcel to say, is there going to be other parking needs that are going to be needed down the road? So giving us the opportunity to look at that.
Any other questions?
Yeah. If we go with the general plan concept combined, how quickly can the public input be changed to allow for that more in-depth, given the fact that we have September events coming up where public, well, at least at the markets, they're going to be
Sure.
starting to present, and I don't know whether
Yeah,
that's also to get comments. Yeah.
Good question. So pending outcome tonight, if the decision is to recommend option 2, we are slated to go to council's second meeting in October. So we will need their approval before we talk to the consultants, but it would be immediate after. We're all the departments are in like almost daily, if not for sure weekly, conversation with the consultants. So it would happen after the second meeting in October.
So the general plan is general, as you described, and there, it is not a planning process for Heather Farm. It is a planning process for parks and rec
Yes.
and open space needs within the city. So that is going to be a broad base, which will be done long before the actual general plan is done, correct? And so we can get started, which I think is what I'm interpreting your schedule that you put in here. It's going to take that, I think you said it was the second phase. It's going to take that second phase. Once we have that information, then we could start working on the master plan here. And I do like the idea of doing all of Heather Farm, because it's 2003, is that what the old one? Yeah, so it's been a while since we did a comprehensive update of Heather Farm.
Yes.
So I like doing a whole, instead of just that section.
Yep.
As fun as that would be, but there's no expectation that someone's going to come in and say, you know, the public is very unlikely to say, oh, well, I think we should, you know, let's put, I don't know, you know, a little go-kart racing place on that corner. You know, I think they're going to be talking in general too. So I think the information we'll get will feed this, but we're still going to have a designer who's going to come in and take all that information and then come up with options for how to use all the space at Heather Farm.
Yes, I mean, what we'll get from the general plan consultants is amenities that our residents would like to see. They're not necessarily gonna say, at Heather Farm,
Correct,
we
yeah,
want a XYZ, but it will rise to the surface that they want go-kart tracks, whatever.
Right.
Yeah, so
I
what
mean,
we'll
and
have
someone
is.
might, because people do know that those pools
Sure.
are going to go away. So
Yep.
they may say, oh, yeah, we really need pickleball, and that's a great place for it,
Yep.
which they would note, right? But that doesn't take away from the deliberations that the consultant and your staff and, you know, our commission and others will have about, okay, this is what we learned from all the input to the general plan, and this is what the population projection is, and, you know, all these other things.
Yep.
And then, you know, we still have the same process, so we just wait. We don't have to, you know, do that baseline again. So I think
Exactly.
that's a good idea to combine. I would support, even though I wanted to get at it right away, I do support the waiting for this,
Thank you.
so.
Any other questions for Chris? If not, I guess we have to vote on the options, right?
I don't believe there's any public comment.
Okay.
So if there's no public comment, yeah, just pull it back in final comments and then make a motion if you would, please.
Any final comments?
So I'll just deliberate right, I think we should go with option one. I mean, I think it's important, I think it is you know, it's an important piece, those 3 acres is an important piece to the city. And I think it's important to look at that specifically. I think the general plan is going to be very general, very high level with the parks. And I think there's value in specifically looking at that, at those specific 3 acres. And I also think that it's important to keep momentum going. And there's extreme amount of momentum right now with the wonderful aquatic facility that's going in. So I think, you know, and that's another thing that Walnut Creek does well, you know, is that, you know, we see one corner gets developed and then the one across the street develops, you know, and it's always changing and it's always moving forward. And I like the idea of keeping that momentum going at Heather Farm. And so I'm in favor of option one.
Thank you. Other commissioners?
Sure. I don't have strong feelings, but I lean towards the combined, if only because I think that trying to seek multiple types of input from our users and citizens can be confusing, more confusing than trying to do it at one time, so to speak. I think it's already going to be confusing enough to get people talking about 2050 and what they're looking like, because it's all going to get moved forward in their minds, and more of I want this and I want it now type of thing. So I think it's possible to do both at the same time, which would be the option two, I guess. So I'm leaning towards that, but I'm also of the feeling that we do spend a lot of time planning, and we do good planning, I know that, but I want to get on with it too, and it would be desirable to make that timeline as fast as possible.
Any other input? I am in favor of a hybrid kind of combination of the option 1 and 2. I appreciate that the general plan, I think there's definitely some synergy there, and it's comprehensive planning for the future of the city. That's a really big plus. But the timeline piece, I wonder if there's any way to prioritizing that discrete, Heather Farm pros aspect of general plan outreach, interviewing and getting input from the communities, and we can fast track that piece to get the project, going as soon as possible. That would be great. So that's my preference.
So to that, I'm just thinking about the vote and what would be helpful for Mike and I moving forward. Can I hear some input on the thought versus looking at the Clark parcel versus looking at Heather Farm's master plan?
You exactly, say that your question again.
So, sure. So one of the things that is different between option 1 and option 2, besides the timeline, is the scope of work.
Yeah.
So is it the preference of this council that whichever option or hybrid we end up
Right.
with, that we are looking at just the Clark property, or that we are looking at Heather Farm in its totality?
My preference is Heather Farm. Yeah, I don't know what other commissioners, your thoughts are.
You mean, you're saying redoing the master plan for the entire park?
Right.
And I concur with that being
Yeah,
a better approach.
but with that parcel as kind of priority piece that needs kind of immediate action, I guess you have to do it all together as a comprehensive planning,
Yeah, I'm just trying
approach,
to-
yeah.
Yeah, I just want to make sure I understand your direction. If we do develop some sort of hybrid or try to change the timeline, I just want to make sure we understand like the scope that you want covered as the priority.
Yeah, we were definitely hoping to build consensus and be
Mhm.
able to move forward with a motion, so that we do have the direction. And to your point, we want to go to council and provide some feedback from the pros commission to the council so that they have an understanding of where we sit. I'm not trying to force a decision here, but I mean, even if there's an opportunity to talk amongst yourselves and try and flesh this out, or ask some additional questions. I know we're in the comment section, but if you have some additional questions so that we can build consensus, that would be helpful.
A lot of this predates my time on the council, but I guess I'm just confused on if all of or many of the sporting fields were replaced and the pool is replaced, like, wasn't there some sort of planning process for the park in general? Because those are two very, very large constituents of the park. So it seems like those two things couldn't have been decided on without thinking more longer term about what most of the park would look like. So I know arts plan that he brought in is 20-some years old, but I've got to imagine that there was some discussion before about what the rest of the park would look like with the pool being moved. So I guess I'm just confused on where those discussions were and what decisions were made at that point when the decision was made to move the pool.
Well, the ball fields just got a new turf. Right. They're the same ball fields that have always been there. So that wasn't a change in use, really, just a change in the material. And, well, it is a change in use, but you know what I mean? It's like, it's still soccer and baseball, softball. still being played there. Same,
But not
you know,
without a large expense, right? And so if we're putting an expense into changing the fields, what
right.
is not being changed
That
in
there
the
is,
park?
and there is a long history there. And that's kind of different than the land use plan, which is, you know, kind of looks at everything in the park. Do we have the right mix of uses in the park, you know, for based on the population? That's where I think the general plan will help us. It's not really going to help us decide what goes in those 3 acres. And I have been looking forward to trying to help plan for those 3 acres for a while, but given the general plan being redone, I'm kind of thinking we're better off trying to leverage some of that. But I also really want to make sure we don't get bogged down in a very long and sometimes contentious general plan process, that when really what we need are just that public input process. And they're starting this fall, so what they're done in the whole public outreach, how long is that? 6 months, 8 months?
Right. Well, and that's our thought, is we're not going to wait till the general plan to be
Yeah.
complete.
Right.
We're absolutely not. We're waiting to get our outreach data and then move
Yeah.
along our business. So,
And another way to maybe do it is if you've got an audience there at a public meeting or a public event, you know, you could, and there's questions about parks, you know, the city park in general and the needs and the open space and all that kind of stuff, and what would you like to see, what do you think's missing, you know, however they word it. You know, maybe there is a chance there to also say, you know, ask them about changes at Heather Farm. Maybe your staff could put together, you know, certain, you know, because it's the biggest community park in the city, and it's definitely, you know, it is for all people in the city. It's not a neighborhood park. It's not, you know, it's really, so I think, you know, maybe you could get the consultant to just have a little side piece on specifically, you know, here's going to be the new facilities, and, you know, or just, you know, they could ask a couple questions specifically about Heather Farm. I think that would be appropriate. And if they get input, they do. If they don't, they don't, right? But I mean, it's, since they're already out there doing something.
that's our thought. So if
Yeah.
it were to get approved by council, that we would then meet with the general plan teams to say, how can you help us? You know, like you said, to us, it's just a few more questions that they would be asking, but it's their scope of work, so we'll have to, but we are in agreement. And so what it allows us to do is to take the $250,000 that would have just been for that parcel and now make it for the whole site. Because as much as we have wanted to do a new master plan, because it's 20-something years old, we don't have the budget to do that. But this allows us to say, well, we can check the outreach box and use the general fund money, and we can use this money to do the master plan. And so it just kind of gives us a little bit more bang for the buck. But we understand the timeline pressures too, and we want something out there too. And, you know, we certainly don't want it to just have a demo site sitting out there. That's not our goal for sure. So I understand the concerns.
So can we talk a little bit more about that demo site? Are the pools going to be, as soon as the new pool is operable and open, they're going to start demolishing? Is that the plan?
Not right away. I would say within 3 to 6 months of the new pool's opening. The current pool, the direction today is the current pool will close when the new pool opens, and then we will ramp up. And there's some environmental testing for some of the materials that the pool was made from. Those types of things will have to start taking place. So I wouldn't say right away. I'd say 3 to 6 months it'll take to demo the site.
So what we're trying to settle is, are we sticking with the scopes as defined in the presentation, which is option 1 is a plan for the repurposing of the Clark site, period, not master plan of Heather Farm, versus combining that with what's going on with the 2050 project as it currently stands, but adding, you know, this little nugget to it, so to speak. Not necessarily create a new master plan for Heather Farm. That's not in the scope currently of those two options. But you're suggesting we ought to have a master plan?
Well, it is for option 2.
So
So it's not in the
It's for
scope of the
option two.
current general
Right.
plan. but it's in the scope of option 2.
Right.
So I think, and everyone jump in and tell me if I'm hearing this incorrectly or synthesizing this incorrectly. What I'm hearing is there may be consensus to do a Heather Farm master plan if we can expedite the timeline that staff initially proposed. Does that sound like there might be agreement? I see head nods. Okay. And to be fair, this is a timeline that we put together without meeting with all of the general plan consultants. So we might meet with them and they give us a timeline that's more expeditious. We were trying to be pretty conservative and give them kind of the time that we are understanding as outsiders kind of looking into the process, and so far, you know, how we've been working with the teams and how the meetings have been rolling out. But we could certainly find out after meeting with them that they could give us the information sooner. We could also find out that they could need more time. So this number is very much based on Mike and I's kind of preliminary assessment of how the process has been working. But I think that recommendation, I mean, do you think that's enough information, Mike, that if you were to vote to say you are on board with option 2, if we can expedite this timeline?
Yes. Yes. Yeah, I think that worked. I think we can work with that. And yep.
Should we do a vote? Are we ready to do a vote?
I just wanted to make another comment.
Okay.
So on the $250,000 in this year's budget, there's no issue with rolling that till we're ready to do the master plan?
We would go back to council and ask for that authorization, but likely that would not be a challenge. Correct. Yeah.
And what would the process be if you talk to the general plan consultants and that it's not possible to expedite this? And then what would happen?
We'll get that information before the council meeting. So if that were the case, we would let council know this was your recommendation, but we staff can't meet that expectation. And then council would decide what they want to do. But yeah, my plan would be to, after tonight, we'll talk to the general plan folks so that council has that information.
So we would put a vote forward contingent upon that information? Because I think we're all for this more expeditious. If that's not gonna happen, I think our vote might change, or our preference might change.
Sure, you can give us an option 2. I think that's fair. So if we determine that the timeline cannot be changed, or it's going to be longer, then your recommendation is X. I think that makes sense to provide that.
Vote in that way, if then.
I think that's fair.
So you need a motion?
Yes, please.
So I move that the commission support preparation of a Heather Farm master plan, and that we rely, to the extent it's available for us, the information gathered by the consultants for the general plan 2050, and that we try to get them to be as expeditious as possible in providing that information. And if they can't provide it in a timely manner, then that's not part of this motion. This motion only applies if they're able to expedite.
We have a second?
Can I?
I second.
Right.
I was going to make a comment. Wouldn't we want to include the comment in the proposal that without an expedited capability, we would then support option 1?
That would be a more eloquent wording, yes.
No, I mean, I didn't want to leave that silent, that's all. Yeah.
Right, and I guess I was just anticipating that I'm not 100% sure I would vote for 1 anyway.
Okay.
So, but that doesn't mean the commission won't positively vote for 1.
Yeah, I mean, you're welcome to amend the motion, and then vote on that. I believe that's,
You would do the you'd vote on the second motion, and if it doesn't pass, then you go back and vote on the first motion.
yeah.
So we should vote on this
Yeah,
modification provided by
so,
Art.
yeah, we want to have a vote based on the initial motion added to my comment about defaulting to option 1. Is that correct?
That sounds,
Is that what we want
yes.
to vote on?
So what does it sound like? We'll vote for option 1 if option 2 cannot be expedited?
Yes.
Right, okay.
Okay, so I don't really like that because I'm not really sure I support 1. In other words,
She can amend.
Then let's vote on your original proposal, and then if we want to add 1, we'll vote it down.
So since there's a second motion on the floor, that has to get voted for first, or we can take another amendment. So if you would like to amend that again, okay. So what you are currently voting on is what Chair just shared, is that your preference is option 2 with an amended timeline, meaning sooner. And if that cannot be achieved, then option 1.
Yeah, you want me to call the roll?
Yeah.
Okay. Commissioner Oler,
Yes?
Commissioner Garland,
no.
Commissioner Brockhouse,
No.
Vice Chair Sasser,
Yes.
and Chair Pinkstaff.
No,
Okay. So then it would default to Commissioner Garland's, or there can be an amendment.
Will you call the roll on Commissioner Garland's? Okay.
So
Oh, wait,
just
so-
for
there a
clarity,
second?
There
so
wasn't a second, I don't think.
Commissioner Garland's was option 2 with no if-there plan.
No if, but with a request that they try to expedite.
Yes.
So-
Option 2 with a expedited timeline.
So we need a second for that?
I think you already did the second.
Okay,
Yeah.
Commissioner Brockhouse.
Brockhouse already did the
Provides the
second,
second,
yeah.
okay. So I'll call roll. Commissioner Oler,
Yes.
Vice Chair Sasser. Vice Chair Sasser,
Yes.
Chair Pinkstaff,
Yes,
Commissioner Garland,
Yes?
and Commissioner Brockhouse.
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
so that the records show,
So let the record show we're going to move with option 2 with the request to expedite the planning process.
and I would like to make a request for the staff to let us know your outcome, conversation with the general plan consultants prior to your council meeting.
What's the date of the October pros meeting?
It's the first Monday, so it will be,
Oh, yeah, you'll know before.
yeah, we can report back on in October, at the October meeting.
Great, thank you. Thank you, Director. Okay, so the next on the agenda is presentation of the Heather Farm Aquatic Center amenity naming approvals. I invite Chris Farrell with the City of Walnut Creek forward to provide the presentation.
Hi, I'm back. So for this one, I mostly wanted to highlight the attachment in that is the agreement that the City Council asked staff to go into with the Aquatics Foundation. So the Aquatics Foundation was asked to raise $3 million, and that was because of some pool improvements that they wanted to see as part of that project. So in return, council allowed them some naming opportunities that they could use for fundraising purposes. So I want to highlight the agreement because it does sit a bit outside of our normal naming process, so I wanted you to be aware of that. So normally a naming would go to council for approval. However, in this case, council gave pros approval for the names. So council outlined the process and the kind of steps that the Aquatics Foundation could take and how much money they had to raise. But as far as the names themselves and the approval for that, it actually goes to pros. So what we have included here are the donations that have been received to date. So on page 2 of this staff report, there is a list of the names, the amenities, and the dollar amounts for the donations that the Aquatics Foundation has contracted to date. So we just ask for your approval. There will be more that will come in the future. These are just the ones that have been approved to date. And why we're doing them in chunks is because we are already working with the design team as far as designing the donor plaques and where they'll be located. And so the more information that we have up front as far as how many characters per name and where the sign will be located and things like that are helpful to us in the design process. So this is the first batch, but you will certainly be seeing more over the next few months.
Can I ask what a lane captain is?
Sure, that's just a name that they gave them. They basically sold the name to each lane, but we're not going to like put a placard for each lane. It'll just go up on a donor board.
So is that for all of these that they'll be on a donor board, even like the locker rooms, or will those be named at the
So the
entrance?
ones that are a room will actually be on the room. I can actually go through the list. So the rec pool and when they sell the comp pool, those will be out on a wall by the pools. The changing rooms will be signage that is up on the changing room. Same with classroom. The lane captains will be on just a general donor board, and the benches will be on benches. They are also selling, there's another item that just goes up on the, it escapes me. There's another one that doesn't have an individual that will also be on the donor wall. So it's a mix. There'll be some that are on the actual item, while others will just be on the donor wall, and it's just kind of logistics, what works for the space. Any questions?
Any other questions from the commissioners?
I have a question about one of the names.
Sure.
So it is the lane captain James R. DeLacy, comma, in brackets, JD, close brackets. I don't understand that. As a common use, I don't know, for instance, whether JD is what this individual is called.
That's a
In-
good question. Or it could be Juris
in-
Doctor. I assumed it
in
was
which-
Juris Doctor, but I don't know.
Well, I think you may be able to assume either one, but normally when you have a JD, you wouldn't put it in brackets.
True.
And above, there is one that is the JP Gym, in brackets, King Men's Changing Room. So there's an inconsistency if it is a nickname. If it's not a nickname, then I question the use of a comma in the brackets.
Sure.
These things are going to be permanent, so we want to be absolutely sure they're done right.
I agree.
So if there's a way to approve the list with that one to be clarified and proposed later,
Absolutely.
that
Or we could also say that our preference is, if it is a nickname, that JP Jim King and James Delancey are recognized in the same way.
exactly.
And if it is something else, then we'll bring it back. But let's at least start with that in case it's that, and then if not, we'll bring it back.
All right, so
Any other
do we have a
comments?
motion for approval? With the clarification that Chris just mentioned. Yeah, sorry. No public comment from the audience? All right. Can we do a motion?
I guess I'm going to have to create the motion since I created the mess. I propose we approve all the names with the exception of the JP Jim King's men's changing room and James R. DeLacy JD to check with these individuals as to what the references are and try to gain a consistent approach to that. Period.
I'll second.
Excellent. I'll call the roll. Commissioner Garland,
Yes.
Commissioner Brockhouse,
Yes.
Vice Chair Sasser,
Yes.
Chair Pinkstaff,
Yes.
and Commissioner Oler.
Yes. And can I make a comment? I do appreciate all these people and the tremendous deep pockets they have for giving to support the pool project. I don't
Thank
want
you.
to take away anything from that.
I want to note the item passes unanimously. Thank you.
All right, next on the agenda is reports on project. Does Secretary Vickers have any report, updates?
I just have a brief report on the pool and the new pool and community center. Things are going well. If you've been out there, you can see from the fence, if you're kind of peering over, that both pools have been completely excavated, and the utilities, meaning the plumbing and electrical, are starting to go in those pools. Once the utilities are complete, they will move forward and install the rebar, and then try and get the shotcrete, the concrete poured before winter hits, likely end of October or even sooner. So they're vigorously working on getting that portion completed. The vast majority of the slab for the community center has been poured. There are a couple sections that are left. One is for the changing rooms, and then part of the kitchen and part of the utility rooms off of the side of the lakeside room. Those should be in line to be poured here fairly shortly, hopefully within the next week or two. And then we plan to start installing the vertical beams, the steel beams, hopefully by the end of September, early October. And then we'll be going vertical from there. So things are going well. We're a couple weeks behind due to some weather that we received in the late rains we had in May. The contractor feels pretty confident that once the facility is enclosed, that we'll be able to make that time up. And so we feel pretty confident that we are going to be able to reach those dates as previously mentioned and stay on schedule. So that's all I had.
Thank you. Any questions from the commissioners on the update? No? All right. Next item, any staff announcements, reports of activities?
No announcements. Thank you.
Any announcements from commissioners? Okay, none. All right. This is a short meeting. So this concludes the August 31st, 2026 Pros Commission special meeting. We're adjourned to October 5th, 2026 regular schedule meeting.